The next film in James Gunn's DC universe gives us a closer look at the Woman of Tomorrow in Supergirl.
Supergirl's been an interesting character within the DC universe because, while Superman has been your key main hero of DC, he's had 6 main shows, 10 films, 2 serials. He's had a lot of stuff that's come out in live action, not to account for all the animated series and stuff that's come out through the years. But Supergirl has been a lot more hit or miss. Like, her first live action appearance was in 1984 as a spinoff of Christopher Reeve's Superman universe there. And it wasn't until The Flash in 2023 that we got another film version of Kara, of Supergirl, which, of course, that ended quickly when the Snyderverse kind of collapsed after that. But TV-wise, you did have a couple seasons of Supergirl on Smallville, and then you had the Supergirl TV show that was part of the Arrowverse on CW that ran for 6 years. But past that, that's been her highlights of being in live action. So, and of course, the 1984 movie was not very well received and done. So, now in James Gunn's universe, we have following up Superman as Supergirl. So this does take place just shortly after Superman, a little bit before, like, we're not sure on the exact timing, but it's after Superman before Man of Tomorrow, which is the sequel that's, filming right now. And it's an adaptation of the Woman of Tomorrow comic series. So that was an 8 comic spread that came out in 2001 or 2021 and 22. That was one of the most popular, Supergirl comic stories. And so it's all about Supergirl's going out to celebrate her birthday. But of course, as you know, Kryptonians under a yellow sun, they can't get drunk in normal means. So she goes out to find a red planet where she's basically normal so she can get drunk and celebrate her birthday. But by doing that, she ends up on a planet where this outlaw named Krim has killed the family of this young girl named Ruthie, who ends up coming into the bar that Supergirl's drinking at and demanding and asking for people to basically putting a bounty on Krim's head and seeing who will take on the bounty. And it revolves around that relationship between them, because Supergirl at her core is all about being good and honest. Same thing as Superman. It's all about being good, but she's a little rougher around the edges than Superman is, because she did have a life on Krypton, or at least what was left of Krypton, for a while. And so she's not accustomed to Earth life and what, Clark has experienced and seen through his life. So she's a little more rougher around the edges. So it's a little harder for her to really fully hone in on the good like she does, but she has her rough edges. And yeah, the story just kicks off from that. It's them just going around the universe trying to track down Krim so she can help Ruthie get her revenge, but not the way that she wants. But it also happened to be that Krim attacked Krypto, and Krypto is dying of a poison. So that's your general basis of this story. And before I throw it over to you, I have to say, I had fun with this. But as someone who just recently reread the Woman of Tomorrow storyline, it is very chopped up. I think if you're a big fan of the Woman of Tomorrow comic series, the 8 issues, you might be a little disappointed because it's a very chopped up version. As we know, adaptations are going to make changes and everything else to make it work in live action. But this is a pretty heavy chop and edit of it.
Yeah, it definitely takes the creative liberties from the story. A lot of your central characters are still there, though. Like you said, the main characters from that comic run are Kara, Ruthie, and Krim. Krim is the bad in that. And it's kind of interesting how they changed up a little bit about Krim and who he was, in the comics versus how they portray him in the movie. Because in the movie, you have him as this strong, real existential threat to a lot of people. He's got super strength and he's got these other abilities.
Well, in the comics he didn't have super
strength.
That's what I'm saying. He was just a strong. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You amped him up here in the movies that you didn't get in then. It was kind of a different portrayal of a character here, and kind of bringing some modern things in here. Definitely some modern political issues were definitely brought into this type of movie and stuff, dealing with human trafficking and things like that. Some very heavy subjects were kind of integrated into this story too. And Yeah, I mean, it's a very quickly paced movie though. Like it doesn't linger a ton in a lot of things because I'm surprised at how barely over an hour and a half is the runtime of this movie. Like it moves very quickly. And I think that helps this movie a little bit because it doesn't allow it to linger. And I think if this movie had lingered in some things a little too long, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much. Like I still thought it was a fine movie. It's not going to be the best superhero movie I see this year, but I don't think it's as deserving of a lot of the ridicule and the backlash that it's getting online right now. And I think that's a lot of people you can, you know, take that with a grain of salt when it comes to how people review things when it's a female action lead versus a male action led kind of thing that I think is leaning a little bit towards a lot of the bias that you're seeing towards this film necessarily. Like this film's not without its issues. Like I don't think in a lot of cases the dialogue is that great. Very kind of standard dialogue in a superhero movie, but I do like the complexity that they did give to Kara in this movie because, you know, Millie Alcock plays, you know, a very, she's struggling to live up to the code that she gets bestowed upon by her parents and, you know, telling her that you must do good above all else. No matter what happens, you have to be good. And I think she kind of struggles with what that is. Like she tries so hard to adhere to those things to be good, but she's also very troubled by the loss of her family and the lack of belonging anywhere. And, you know, you get that dynamic between her and Clark, where Clark had, in her eyes, a much easier time acclimating to Earth because he didn't have that experience on Krypton that she had, and she was older when that happened. And, you know, it's like she grew up around that and getting to actually see, like, the loss of her parents, like, over time, as opposed to a quick send-off like Clark was when he was a baby. But, you know, you get her really struggling with that morality a little bit because of what she winds up having to do in this movie. Like, you see her kind of playing with it and still trying to figure out who she wants to be as a hero. And that's kind of the real moral through line of this movie is, you know, her kind of trying to find what kind of hero she wants to be while still trying to be good. Like, she does have to make some pretty hard decisions in here, and, you know, you see her kind of growing and maturing throughout the movie to kind of get her to where she winds up at the end of it. But I think as a through line for that, if you do dig a little bit deeper beyond some of the surface level stuff that wasn't as good, I think there's a pretty good message in there and a pretty good story that they were telling, even if it wasn't executed as well as I think it could have been.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems of adapting the Woman of Tomorrow storyline is a majority of it is told through narration. It's Ruthie as an older woman retelling the story of this adventure that she went on with Supergirl for her revenge and stuff. And they said, I would almost say 60% of that comic is narrated in that way. So you lose a lot of that exposition of how their bond is building and all that. I do believe my biggest problem with the film is how much they changed Krim. Like you said, in the comics, he was just kind of a normal thug. He was a guy who worked for the king. They didn't even include the king's storyline or anything in there. Who had, you know, come across her family. There was, I think, 6 brothers. In the film, there's only 1. But he tells a joke that's inappropriate about the king, and, you know, Ruthie's father takes offense to it, which, based off of what Krim was supposed to be doing, I mean, the comic has its own issues and problems itself. But he took offense to him not laughing at his joke, and he ran him through and left the sword in him. And that's kind of how Ruthie in the comics gets a sword and goes on it, because of just how ruthless and wrong that the murder was. And in the movie, they go even further with that. But I think the biggest problem is they made him superpowered. As you mentioned, in the comics, he's a regular guy. But you get how he can best Supergirl here and there because of the different suns that they go through. You have the green sun that's like kryptonite. You have the red sun that makes her normal. And then, of course, you have the yellow sun planets that allow her to have her powers back. But it was that dynamic that he's a regular guy, but because of her drinking and being on a red planet is how he can best, and that he, you know, is almost caught. Well, he's caught on another planet, and he sacrifices these people and then becomes part of the brigands. But in here, he's basically the leader of the brigands right away.
Out the gate, yeah.
He's also a redhead with a beard in the comics, and he kind of looks like I couldn't stop seeing it, a cross of Taserface and an orc from Lord of the Rings, kind of. His mannerisms were very orc-like, and his look was like Taserface to me. Like, he wasn't as extreme as Taserface.
Yeah.
But it was just a look that had nothing to do with that character in the comics. And I get making some changes, but this was pretty much another character with a Krim name put to it.
Yeah, with a little bit of Mad Max mixed in too, with some of that aesthetic.
It was very Mad Max meets Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and that's kind of the theme here, which is so funny considering that James Gunn supposedly wasn't as hands-on with this as he was with Superman. Like he was still involved, but he wasn't as hands-on with like the writing.
I think it
of
shows.
the script. And you can definitely see it a little bit here, but you get the tie-in to where it's leading into Man of Tomorrow, obviously next. So you get some of that interconnected, where you get a little bit, like, you don't get Superman in that story at all, but because it's tying into what they're trying to do with this connected universe that James Gunn's putting together, you get the Clark integration just a little bit. You get a couple appearances, like you said, via the video messages and stuff while he's on Earth and she's out doing her thing and he's checking on her. And then you get a little bit of that at the very end too, just to kind of set up what's, potentially the dynamic of things going into Man of Tomorrow, which I am personally very excited for.
She's supposed to be a pretty large part of Man of Tomorrow.
As she should be, because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that happens in that story, in that movie, that I'm looking forward to. But I felt like kind of a tamer entry into this. Like, the action was fine. The action was okay. I enjoyed Jason Momoa as Lobo. It was cool to kind of see him in that aesthetic, and he was fun for the bits that he was in, but I almost felt like he wasn't completely necessary for the movie either.
Yeah, he was another character that never showed up in The Woman of Tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, he wasn't in the comics either, but you got him in there. It was cool to see. I'm glad that
he played it perfectly, but he wasn't exactly needed.
Right. I mean, he got to have some fun with what little he got to do in there, but you had some fun moments of that and some fun back and forth with him and Kara, especially the dialogue between them. It was one of the more fun dynamics of the movie, but it didn't feel like it had to have been in there, but it was mixed in there to bump up the entertainment value of it just a little bit more, add a little bit of humor and lightheartedness, which you're getting a little bit more of with James Gunn's DC at this point. But it was fine. Like, I think the movie was fine. I don't think it was, like, it's not without its issues. Like I said, you definitely take this version and you got what we got of it, where they kind of just took elements of the story. Some of the major points, like, you kept throughout, but you definitely cut a lot of things out that could have been implemented. But I think we still got a fine story. I really enjoyed the kind of the what I call the space bus battle with the three girls and Kara. That was pretty fun, just to kind of have that kind of mixed in.
I didn't look it up. Was that Seth Rogen as the little guy in there?
I think that was his voice. It sounded just like him, and it could have been, but I didn't get a chance to look at that either. But that was very fun too. But yeah, I mean, there was some good action in it, some good lighthearted moments. It's a fine superhero story. Like, I think it's okay. I think they did a solid job with it. It didn't blow my mind with anything, but I think we still got a solid story with a little bit of heart mixed in. You can see that she clearly loves her dog, and you see the emotional attachment she had for it. Obviously, the through line of it is her racing to get this antidote for, Crypto, who gets very brutally, just kind of without any, like, reservation from Krem here, just to kind of poison him and just, like, basically take a little 2-second break from eating cereal to kind of shoot this dog, which is insane. But you get that heart in that through line there with her love of her dog and seeing that come through, and, like, the love that she has for him. That was cool to see that bond grow a little bit and add a little more context to it, and see just how important Crypto was to her, and that, like, he was the family she'd always had, and it was really cool to see that dynamic between them. It was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, because you get some sequences that take you back to Krypton, when it's kind of being destroyed and what happens after it's not completely destroyed yet. That she, Crypto is like past Clark. Crypto is the last thing from Krypton for her, and you do get to get some fun look backs at Krypton and get to see her dad and get to see some different things and hear the Kryptonian language being said and get a little different look at Krypton, because there's one part of Krypton that we really haven't had done in live action, and they did hear of with a little bit of spoilers here, the city gets separated from Krypton as it's exploding, and it's being protected by an overshield that was done by, Zor-El, which is Kara's dad, to kind of help protect people. But there's a darker underlying element, which they touch on, but they don't go as... I think that's the biggest thing, if you're a fan of the Woman of Tomorrow comics, is that it does lose some of the punch that it has, because while it touches on the aspects of the kryptonite radiation poisoning, it doesn't go as dark as the comic did in many different ways, especially because like early on when Crypto gets shot, Kara was supposed to be bloodied and really hurt when she first fights Krim and stuff, and they cut that kind of stuff. And it did lose some of that emotional impact of the Woman of Tomorrow story, especially the ending. They change it up a bit because Woman of Tomorrow does get a little crazy towards the end. You have one super animal that doesn't show up in here. That's a light spoiler, but I'm glad it didn't, because it would have been so weird and strange to have in live action. And I get why they cut out the original ending of it and change it, because it goes a bit farther out in time, but also kind of what it does with stuff. But yeah, if you're going in wanting a truly faithful adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow, you're not really getting it here. It's very chopped up. Yeah. So if you can look past that and just look at it for what it is of being a Supergirl tale in a film, it's enjoyable. It's fun. Like, Millie Alcock is really good as Kara, as Supergirl. I really like her in this role. She's got the sass and attitude. Of course, she was great in House of the Dragon and all that, of where most people know her from before this. She had this slight cameo in Superman before that. And you said Jason Momoa is fun as Lobo, even though he doesn't really need to be in the film. He's fun. Like, we all know this was a role he was born to be. He wasn't born to be Aquaman. He was born to be Lobo, and he showed that he fit everything, the look, the attitude, just everything perfectly with him. But past that, it was just kind of okay. Like, the way they changed Krim, I feel like, and it wasn't just Krim, it was the bandits too. Like, this is getting another little spoiler. Not only Krim is superpowered, but all the bandits are too, because they're able to take a whipping from Supergirl, so they don't really touch on that. Krim they do, but when they can get the crap beat out of Supergirl and get back up, that they have some sort of superpower to them. That lost me a bit, because you lost the kind of the groundedness of that story with Woman Tomorrow and what the true meaning of everything Kara did, because they also cut out a lot of the other planets where you get to see Kara struggling more about trying to do good while there's so much bad going on, and trying to keep her patience, which is a lot of the story, because she's trying to teach Ruthie a lesson through all this, but that lesson is very, very much thinner in here. And like, as we said, there are sequences that are very much Guardians of the Galaxy, and there are sequences that are very much Mad Max Fury Road, even with the brides, bringing in the trafficking and how they looked, and the vehicle battle in the desert and stuff. Like, they just took Woman of Tomorrow and combined it with Guardians and Mad Max. It's not a total failure in that. It has problems, but it is enjoyable as a film in the end. Like, you've just got to kind of... Which it took me a little bit because of just rereading the story, so I could be, remind myself of everything that happened in it. You can't go into looking at it to be a straight adaptation of Woman Tomorrow, because you will be very disappointed in that.
Yeah, it's a little too crazy, but like you said, they stuffed it into like less than an hour and 45-minute movie. Like, it's a very brisk movie, and I was kind of reading up after that, as we tend to do before we come in here and talk about it, and I guess they chopped about 10 minutes of a movie out of it to get it down to like the minute and 40 something runtime that it had. And a lot of that had to deal with more of like Krim's backstory and kind of why he was the way he was, which you really don't get that here. You just get like, he's the bad guy. He's this ruthless, like, you don't really get into the exposition of why he is how he is, which I guess you don't really have to. But I think some of that
needed
stuff,
it from the comic story.
It couldn't have hurt it, but that's what I had heard, that supposedly like a couple months ago when people were getting like extra advanced screenings and stuff like that, when they were doing like test screenings, that they cut some of that stuff out to kind of trim the movie down a little bit more. But that's just Craig Gillespie's style as well. He's notorious for making shorter like feature length movies. Like, he doesn't like the long run time, so he he got his crisp hour 40. Like that was.
But it did leave Krim feeling a little generic.
Sure,
he didn't feel like
he's a very generic villain.
Yeah, even in The Woman of Tomorrow, he's not a big bad in any way. But there's that backstory, and his reason why he does stuff is important to why he is a villain of the story, and you lose all of that.
It's not like he's Darkseid or one of these other like really well-known villains for a reason. Like he serves the purpose of what he does to get Kara to where she needs to be to jump into the next thing. Like obviously you're going to have, Lex Luthor and all these other people that are going to be involved in the next one. And she is where she is now, so she can be more effective in the story later, which is kind of what you get here. It's like a bridge film. Like it gets you a little bit of background for Supergirl, how she gets to where she is. Now she's the hero that she wants to be. Now she's going to move forward into Man of Tomorrow, and we get some fun stuff here. I did want to give a little bit of love to David Krumholtz as Zor-El as well. I'll always love when he pops up into films. I'll always think of him as Bernard from the Santa Claus. I can't not see him as that, even as a full-grown adult. And he's been in several other things, especially recently. Like I see him popping up in more stuff. But it was cool to see that, and also funny to think that he and Bradley Cooper are brothers because you have the cousins and everything. Like, okay, he's Bradley Cooper's brother. Like I can kind of see it a little bit. Like it was pretty funny to kind of put that two together. Eve Ridley was fine as Ruthie too. Like I thought she was okay.
She's supposed to be an annoying character all throughout this Woman of Tomorrow story. She's just repeating the same lines over and over again and doing all the dumb, wrong things just over and over again. She's supposed to be annoying.
It did make me laugh when she was giving her speech and her spiel to somebody else, and you cut to Kara, and Kara's just mouthing the words to it. Like she's so annoyed with her. It's like, yes, we get it. You're of the clan of this. You're gonna do that. I had a good laugh at that. That was pretty funny.
But yeah, you kind of also lost a lot with Ruthie because, as I said, in the comics, it's just her father. She still has her brothers and her mom. And here it's a much different story. So she doesn't really have something to go back to at the end of this movie. So you're kind of leaving that character. We don't really know, by the way the movie ended, too, exactly. Is she going to come along at all? We didn't see her in the very, very end, but you were curious, is this trying to shoe her in and bring her around some more? Because you had something for her to go back to in the comics, and this one you're just kind of leaving her. Like she says she has something, but it was something that was never in the comics, and it just feels like, okay, well, what do we do with her now? Oh, well, she can go over here when she's done. It was just kind of that very quick, that's why I said it was very chopped up of trying to tell that story where they left out a lot of bits and left, okay, how are we going to end this? How are we going to do this? And but she was fine. She hit most of the notes of the character in it. You did, but like I said, you did lose a lot of that bonding that they usually, you have a few moments, but of course, Woman of Tomorrow, most of it is their bonding through different situations that they get put in, bouncing from one planet to another. But yeah, like you said, the action sequences were fine. I had no problems with them. Like you got to see Supergirl beating up a lot of people and tearing through ships and throwing things around and being bested sometimes because of, the planets that she's on. And I think the action sequences were fine. They were adequate. With it, Lobo had a few moments, not a ton. I am just curious what they're setting up for him. Like Jason Momoa has talked about, if we're going to do any sort of spinoff of his own film, it's got to be rated R. It's got to be dark. It's got to be gritty. It's got to be that. And it's not that I don't think DC's opposed to that. We have Clayface coming up, which is a rated R body horror, so I don't think that's going to be a problem getting that done. But you don't know where it's going to fall because, James Gunn just really isn't showing his cards too much. You've only got a few projects at a time that they're letting out, and they've already talked like they're already working on what comes after Man of Tomorrow. It's another
they should be
Superman, Supergirl type of story. So you don't know where Lobo is really going to fit. It could be 4 or 5 years from now before we get to see a solo Lobo film or something else that involves him, because with him, it's going to be a bit different if most of Superman and Supergirl stuff is going to be on Earth from now on. But it is that huge contrast that a lot of people may not be fully ready for, of Superman being that more lighthearted, funny. It's got a few dramatic moments, but it's mostly kind of lighter, while the Woman of Tomorrow story is a bit darker. It's a bit more emotional, and you don't get the full emotion, but you get some good emotion out of Amelie, especially on Krypton, and when she's having to leave and everything. But you do get a lot of humor added into that story, which tries to tie it together. But it definitely has a much different feel than anything that's come out yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we can come to expect from this, right? Like, James Gunn's made it pretty clear that, tonally each thing is going to feel a little bit different from the other. Like, I'm very excited for Lanterns. It's coming out later, like in a couple months now. And then you've got Clayface, which is a complete right turn. And then you got coming back to Superman, and then whatever he's got that he's working on. I'm excited for the future of it still, even if this one was, I feel like a little bit of a step down from Superman, but still a really solid movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm still excited for all the things they've got coming up, because you can take this in a bunch of different directions. Like, you've got your R-rated stuff that you can lean into. They weren't afraid to do that with, like, Creature Commandos. That was the animated series as well. That was very, very TVMA, and, they're not afraid to go there, but there's a lot of fun stuff in the pipeline too.
Yeah, it's like Supergirl. You have a little bit more language in here that you didn't really have in Superman, with some cursing and everything, and you get some more violence and death that happens, but it's not graphic in any real nature. It's very comic booky deaths and attacks and everything with it. But yeah, the problem was I had a lot of fun with it, but is knowing that storyline, like, there was plenty that they could have cut out, and they did cut out that was good. But it did feel in the end that it missed that real emotional impact, because it's supposed to have that emotional, you have a kind of emotional scene. It's supposed to be a pretty emotional scene at the end of the film here, but it doesn't hit as hard because you don't feel that journey was as lengthy and as hard and as emotional as it was in the comic line. The comic line, they visit 4 or 5 more planets and have so much more that goes on for, and you didn't really need all those planets, but it was the heart, it was the core, it was that bonding that you miss from that, and that emotional impact. So it had plenty of laughter, had plenty of action and everything into it. It missed on capitalizing on the overall heart punch that it was trying to get. And I don't feel like it's anything on the actors and what they did. Like I said, Millie Alcock was great as Kara in here, but I just think that they didn't capitalize on that emotional impact that
sure
those comics had with it. And it was a little disappointing. Like I said, the biggest disappointment to me in it was just they turned Krim into something completely different. Like, you could have called that another guy, because he has 1% of what Krim was. And again, he is a very small, generic type of villain in the Supergirl comics, but they made him feel even more generic by what they did to him. Like I said, he felt like Taserface mixed with an orc, mixed with like Mad Max, because he didn't stand out from the other bandits either. And you don't even have like the other leader that was in the comics of the bandits. You just kind of instantly made him the leader and went around. And I also don't think you got the impact of how ruthless those bandits are supposed to be in Krim himself, because in the comic series, Krim is able to cast a magic kind of spell, which, again, that's a part that's, spoiler, it's good that they didn't include in it, because it wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense in this universe. But it helped show that, to cast that magic, you had to kill thousands upon thousands of people. So it really hammered home just how of a horrible, terrible person he is, and murder. And you didn't really get that feeling, because they changed the brigands from being people who just go around to murder and destroy things for the fun of it, which it still touches on that, but it's more about them going around and taking girls to be able to keep their all-male bloodline going for the brigands and stuff, and it turns more into them getting brides and how it goes from that, and less about the just being a conquering type of people.
They're problematic, just in a very different way. Yeah. Like it's still heavy, it's still dark, like on the surface of it too. They're just not as it's a bit more implied danger than like actual physical, because like they do hold their own when it comes to fighting, and Kara has to put up a pretty solid effort to get the best of them to win the day, and she's not doing it without help. Obviously, when you have Lobo mixed in too, like she's she's not completely on her own taking these guys out. Although by the end, when she fully lets go and like you get the big part where she really swings the momentum in her favor on that was really fun. Like that was a really fun action sequence there towards the end of the film. That was really well done and a good like. They get that style. I call it the DC stylized, like action. The way they shot the action there with this, like if you watch Superman and you see how things kind of go in a circle and you see bodies flying.
Yeah, they definitely kept that style.
It was very on par with what you see in Superman with the action stuff there. So I appreciate that consistency of it and that through line. Like that really helped as well. And I still enjoyed it, man. It was still a good time at the theater. Like it was, a fun film that I don't think it deserves a lot of the things that are being overly critical for them for, but it's still not like a perfect, comic book movie by any means. Like it still has its flaws, but I don't think it's deserving as much of a lot of the visceral hate that it seems to be getting from some people, which is very unfortunate because it's still entertaining.
There's a lot of hate just to be hateful because that's how the internet is anymore. Of just spreading hate nonstop because you got a female lead or I don't like the way she looks or something. Millie's a beautiful young woman. People who are making fun of her looks online are just troglodytes. They're just absolutely ridiculous of what the stuff they say and the box office is going to suffer of that because if you see so much anger and ugliness online, people are going to stay away from it.
Yeah, and it's heavily influencing people, but I mean, speaking from our own experience, our theater was pretty full for the showing, so I'm glad to at least see that. Like it is feeling like it's tracking a little bit more disappointingly in the box office, and we'll see what it winds up doing. Obviously, you're still out there with a Toy Story juggernaut that's out there for now, and you're kind of treading a little bit of water for some of these next big films that are coming in July that are just going to wipe through and take everything over too, that we're very much looking forward to. But I still think it's worthy of holding its own, and it's still worth the watch. It's still worth going to see. Give it a chance. Go check it out and form your own opinions on it, obviously, and we'd love to hear about it. But like, I just wish people would, at the very least, be more open and willing to give it a chance, just not basing their entire judgment of seeing a movie on what a couple of people say about it, and that's a little disappointing.
So Supergirl is a fun movie overall. I think if you are a big fan of the Woman Tomorrow comic line, you're probably going to have more issues with this film than anybody else. So if you can disconnect that, there's still plenty of action and fun to do. It is a little bit disappointing of how much they chopped up the Woman of Tomorrow's story. They changed Krim pretty drastically. They changed a lot of stuff pretty drastically in it. But in the end, it is an overall fun film it's a bit below Superman for me, but it's still enjoyable to watch. I'm going to give it a 7. I think that's it's still somewhat low, but also high for some people, but I think it's kind of the right point to it. It has plenty of issues. Jason Momoa is great as Lobo, but he really wasn't needed in this film. Millie Alcock is great as Supergirl, but you are missing a little bit more of that emotional impact that comic storyline that they're basing this off of had. So for all those issues it had, I think 7 is a solid enough score for it because it's enjoyable, it's a fun watch, but it does have plenty of problems.
Sure, and that's a fair assessment. I kind of laughed when you said your number, and I was like, once again, we're kind of on the exact same page with what we're rating because I'm giving it a 7 too. Like, it's very quick paced. It doesn't like linger on anything, and part of me wishes that it did, and it kind of loses a little bit for that. Like, you could have spent a few minutes extra here and there and kind of added a little bit more of that emotional oomph that we say was just missing a little bit. Millie Alcock is awesome in this. Like, I think she's a great Supergirl. I'm excited to see her in the Man of Tomorrow film and see what she does there, kind of accompanying Superman along with whatever adventures they're going to have in that. That's going to be a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to that. Jason Momoa's Lobo, check that off the fan bucket list. Like, that was really cool to see, and we'll see what he comes out and does with, beyond that for Lobo. We'll see what other projects he's involved in, but it's still a fine movie. Like, it's not the best comic book movie I've seen. It's not going to be the best comic book movie we see this year, I hope, because obviously we got a couple of heavy bangers coming out, through the rest of the year that we're excited to see. But yeah, I mean, it's got its issues. It's not perfect, but it's definitely not worth it's definitely not as low as a lot of people are kind of poking at it and kind of claiming it to be. I think 7 is a perfectly fine score for this movie. Definitely go check it out and let us know what you think for sure.
Yeah, and as I said, and I've repeated a few times now, just if you know the storyline, try to forget it for the most part. That's going to help a lot in the viewing, which is hard to say when you're adapting a storyline because you get that you want it to, at the core, stay the same, and it is at the core Woman of Tomorrow storyline.
Sure.
It just misses a lot of the beats that made that story special in the comics and stuff. But before we wrap up today, we're going to be like old men yelling at clouds here for a minute because we're going to have another little PSA about just etiquette in the movie theaters because unfortunately, and it also did hamper my enjoyment of the film. So I'm curious to look when it comes out on digital to watch it again and see if I feel any better or different about it. I could even feel worse about it when I have the time to look at it. But parents, please teach your kids manners. We've talked about adults having problems and issues with talking and being on their phones and stuff, but we had a group of teenagers, probably 10 of them, who were sitting directly behind us, all of them with their shoes off. They were clapping with their feet. They were making music with their straws. They were taking their recliner leg rest up and down, talking throughout the entire movie. And it's not just talking, it's screaming. Like, even in the early previews of the Dr. Evil Verizon commercial, that's Lex Luthor. That's Lex Luthor. They're just screaming stuff out because they think they're being cute and funny. And it's the TikTok generation that's just causing all these problems because they think that whatever they do is going to be humorous if they're being that kind of stuff, but they're just ruining everyone's enjoyment. They did end up getting kicked out, and they've been kicked out multiple times. So I'm not just saying this out of, just kids being kids. No, these are kids who do not have the discipline and have not been parented right because they're going out and repeatedly doing things that are getting them kicked out of movies and being rude and not caring that they're ruining other people's enjoyments. We all pay the same money, so why should you get to ruin my enjoyment of a film or not? It was just absolute, because you could tell they wanted to get a rise out of people. They wanted someone to go report them. They wanted to get kicked out. Like, they want that thrill or whatever it is. And it's just being young and dumb, but this just isn't kids being kids. This is kids being jerks because they weren't raised right.
Yeah, I mean, I messaged you when you were in line getting concessions.
And I didn't see it until I sat down.
You didn't see it until you sat down, but I literally said, there's an entire row of teenagers behind us. And I kind of knew, I was hoping we weren't walking into what we were wound up walking into. But you could tell before the movie even started that it was going to go. I still hold out hope. This is my perspective on it. Talk all you want until the movie starts. I don't even care if you talk during previews. I really don't. It's a little annoying if you do during previews, especially if it's a trailer for something I'm excited to see. Like, spoiler alert, if we get the Doomsday trailer, which we probably will in front of Spider-Man, I want it quiet because I want to see the freaking trailer. But, I'm not even, as upset from that. It's when you're talking during the actual movie, and it's, you see Jason Momoa pop out on the screen and an idiot yells, Aquaman, it's Aquaman. Shut up.
Someone call Batman.
Yeah.
We need Batman.
Just being that annoying about it, it really hinders the enjoyment of the experience of the film for us. We're big advocates. I kind of wish we had an Alamo movie house here.
Really? Alamo Draft House, please put one in our area.
Put one in our area, please, for the love of God, because they don't mess around with people acting like that in the movie theaters. It was a little disappointing that we had to kind of deal with that throughout the entire movie, and it really we still got enjoyment out of the movie. Don't get me wrong, we try not to let that affect us too much, but this was over the top. This was too much, and you deal with that social dynamic. Teenagers, whatever. We've been teenagers before. I was incredibly dumb as a kid. I did and said a bunch of dumb things too, but even in a setting like that, I knew that people were still trying to go to enjoy themselves and be entertained. And there's a time and place to act like that. Act like that before the movie. Act like it after the movie. I don't care. But this is a time where we're all trying to focus and get enjoyment and entertainment out of the same thing. And if that's how you enjoy the movies, don't go to the movie theater. Yep. Don't ruin that for everyone else. Or get your parents to rent out the entire theater and you can act a fool all you want. Yep. Don't care. But like when you're doing that and you're really hindering the experience for people that, like, I'm not gonna lie, I work a pretty stressful job. Like, I deal with a lot of stuff during my week. Anybody that knows me knows that. They know the amount of hours I work. They know that everything I go through during the week at my job, day-to-day life. Day-to-day life's hard for everyone as it is, but like, this is kind of like an outlet for me. Like, I love the movies. Obviously, we've got a show here that we're talking about it that we've been doing for a couple of years. Lifelong movie fans. Like, this is an outlet and escape for me to kind of put all that noise and that mess just off to the side that the rest of life has and just let me be entertained for a couple hours. And to have that taken away by just a really negative experience because people don't know how to shut up during a movie, it really sucks. And I hate that people continue to think that acting like this in a public setting like that is okay. Because it's not. Because you're just being a jerk.
They were bragging about the movie that they've been thrown out of the movies multiple times.
Talking like they got thrown out of Minecraft and all that stuff. I'm like, cool, bro. Like, I don't know what you think this is going to add of any value to your life, but whatever. Like, I get it. Young, dumb, whatever. But if you're going to act like that in a public setting like that, don't go out. Watch the movie at home. Do whatever you want. Talk during the whole thing. Miss the entire plot. I don't care. But don't go and ruin out this experience. This stuff is expensive enough to go see these movies, and I just hate that people feel like it's okay to act like that in public when it's really not. Like, it was just the absolute worst. That I'm kind of in agreement with you. I want to watch the movie again just to see if my experience of it changes when I don't have a bunch of kids behind me talking the entire movie. Like, it sucked, but I still tried as hard as I could to focus on the movie so we can come and talk about it. Like, I have a good enough ability to kind of, obviously, if you don't know, I'm a little bit hard of hearing and stuff. I wear hearing aids and stuff like that. So I have a little bit easier of a time to focus than old Sonic ears over here.
You look at me and
he's got the dad ears that he can hear a pin drop 2 towns over.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I have the ability to kind of tune that out a little bit better than he can, but it was even like on my last nerve of it too. And it really sucked and it really drug down the experience. But for the love of God, stop acting like that at a movie theater. Like, it's just so unnecessary.
And if you're a parent of teen, just make sure they know to be common sense and common decency is one thing that's severely lacking nowadays. You got to teach your kids that. Just tell them, like, hey, I know you're going out with your friends to have a lot of fun, but remember, there's other people there. You need to be a little more courteous. Like, if you're going to talk, keep it down. This just wasn't talking. This was screaming things out, trying to be funny during the movie, and it was not funny in the slightest. No one laughed, but not even their friends laughed. Like, they were screaming stuff out, and none of their friends even laughed at what they were screaming out. Yeah. Bragging about being thrown out, making as much noise as possible. Like, they wanted to disrupt the film, and that's the problem we have with it. Like, they were not there to watch the film. They were there to be disruptive, and that really needs to end. And we talked to the theater afterwards, and they said, unfortunately, that happens a lot. We get a lot of teen groups that come over from the mall that come in, and we have to kick them out because they're just there to be disruptive. And that's why I said it's a TikTok generation, because you have people doing that for clicks and views online, and they think that's acceptable to do in real life, when half the time most of that stuff is set up anyways, or those people are getting in much bigger trouble than they show online. It's like, let people enjoy things. And, well, should I let them enjoy? No, because they're being disruptive. They're not there to watch the film. They're there to ruin other people's time and get a rise out of them. That's the problem with that. Like, sure. So we've always said you can react to the movie by, if something big happens, clapping and cheering or getting emotional, or those little bits. That's all about interacting with the movie in a good way. That's short little bursts of you doing. This is just screaming things out at the screen so you can see if anybody laughs at you, and just making, like, it was 5 minutes of one of the kids pushing the buttons up and down on his recliner so he could make noise, until one of his friends actually yelled at him to stop because they got annoyed by their own antics. Like, you know, when you're going too far with stuff, when people in your group are getting upset by what you're doing. And there was probably 10 of them. I would say it was 4 or 5 of them at the core that was causing all the problems, but that's more than enough, especially when none of them sounded like they've hit puberty yet, so their voices were much higher pitched, and it became extremely annoying, extremely quick. Just be decent human beings when you go out anymore. Like, the movie theater is experience with other people, but it's to watch the film. It's not to hear you talk, not to have your conversations, all the noise and everything you can make and be disruptive to a screening. It's about that communal viewing of a film where you can see the enjoyment that other people are having or the problems that they're having out of it, not about trying to make people's experience worse. And that's exactly what they were trying to do. So please do better. Please talk to your teens. I have a teen myself. These kids were older than my oldest. You've got to instill in them what's right and wrong and show them what they need to do, especially when they're in public. Like, that was just, if a parent was there, that parent would have marched all those kids out of there, but they were all left to their own devices and they were doing whatever they want. And with how many times they've been kicked out, they don't care. They want that. They want that attention until it turns into something criminal.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that it hindered our ability to enjoy the movie. But at the end of the day, we still love the movie. We still, like, we said it's not without its faults. We got, we got our grades and we've talked about how we feel about it. At the end of the day, just let people enjoy their experience at the theater, man. Like, there's so many other places where you can go, cut up, let loose, be obnoxious, have a good time where you're not hindering other people's enjoyment. Like, there's so many other things you can do. Find better outlets for it. Like, there's a time and place for it, and that's just not one. It's just not. Like, don't go ruin that experience for other people. And I almost guarantee none of those kids paid for one of those movie tickets either. Like,
they've been through, every time they've been thrown out is being disruptive, but they're also sneaking into
other movies too. Yeah, and it's a big problem, and I hope that our theater gets a little bit more firm in how they handle those sort of things. I don't know what all they can do, obviously, but hopefully they could just be a little more firm in it, because it was just a real disappointing experience from that end of it, movie aside. Like, hopefully we don't have to deal it. And I think we're usually pretty good about avoiding those types of things due to how early of a screening we typically go to. We typically do go like early evenings. Obviously we're both full-time jobs, working people, like, we can't go like middle of the afternoon or anything. I would love to be able to do that. That would be so much better. But we're not going like to the super late ones where it's usually a younger crowd that's out there and doing that. And maybe that's more prevalent there, but we're usually pretty fortunate to avoid that crowd just based on the time that we go. And it's unfortunate that it made its way to here, obviously with school being out and it's summer, the opportunities for that are bigger, but yeah, still just stop ruining other people's time. Just be cool, man. just do it for that time. Go have fun elsewhere and go do, cut up with your friends and make memories and do all things like that. Like, I'm all for that. It's just this time or place, don't do it. Just shut up.
Just don't be going out with a purpose to ruin other people's time. So that's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, we still got through Supergirl. Supergirl is out in theaters now. Please go check it out. Come to our social medias. Let us know what you think about the movie. We would love to talk about it with you. Do you think it was terrible? Do you think it was even better than we gave it? Let us know, and we'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, and hopefully if you have hopefully you won't have the same issues that we did. But if you do, let us know about those too and the problems that you've had with going to theater, because it is a problem that's affecting cinemas. Like, more and more people are not wanting to go to the movies because of the price, but also how people are acting is keeping a lot of people away, and it's hurting the theaters a lot and hurting these movies because people are being so just ridiculously rude in the movie theater. Like, we complain about it a lot, but luckily we had a pretty good stretch where it wasn't. But yeah, hopefully if you go out and check out Supergirl in theaters, you're not going to have the same problems. So thank you so much for tuning in, and if you feel so inclined, do all the things to help the show out, from follows, shares, likes, and comments on social media, to subscribing on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms. All of it helps us out so much, and we can't thank you enough for all the support.
You can also become a subscriber over on Patreon to get each episode delivered to you early, exclusive merch items, and your name read out at the end of every episode. Check it out at patreon.com/we'll bring the popcorn.
That's going to do it for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.